So Sunday night, the rain of Sunday afternoon is supposed to mix in with some snow, and then it's supposed to be snow showers. And they say basically covering some grassy areas in Indiana. And Monday will be November the 10th. That's pretty early in the season to get a covering snow,
Yes.
especially compared to recent years. But does it
Right.
signal something that we should be aware of with the winter coming?
I think it signals be ready for anything.
Here it comes.
Well, it's another day. Be ready for whatever comes at us.
Yeah, well, let's get ready for the coming of snow, and start on the lawn with all of the leaves, because I've got trees that are still green.
Yes. Yeah, look, we can look out the window here and see oak trees with green leaves on.
Yeah. So that being the case, eventually they're going to come down.
Eventually.
We assume. But leaving a big coating, a blanket of leaves on your lawn, and then getting the snow on top of it, could that be problematic?
If it remains there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
If oak leaves are pretty tough, and they won't melt down.
Uh-huh.
Maple leaves, like
They'll
red
crinkle
maple
up.
leaves, those things, they get wet and then they turn to mush, and so you can have that matting effect. But a little bit of snow, it's going to warm up fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Although really this will be the lowest temperatures we've had. If we get that 29 and then like 24 going into Monday morning, that'll start to signal those plants that they're going to lose some more leaves.
Time to shut down.
They'll change. And we haven't had that. We haven't had those low 20 temperatures yet. So that'll finish, a lot of the perennials and things that might be hanging on, or if, you have things planted in protected locations that might still be green. After Monday, that'll start to change.
For the long term, the winter long term, leaving your leaves on the ground, and perhaps getting that matting effect that you were speaking of. That could be a problem.
Good. Right. Yeah. You can definitely get areas within the yard that won't like that. It'll smother out the grass, and you may have repairs to do next spring if you leave them there. What we can do with leaves, if we keep up with it, is our mulching mowers.
Yeah.
If you have a shredder, if you have a vacuum that shreds the leaves, or mulching mowers with the blades that really chop it up and allow it to kind of filter down into the grass, that's okay. That's good. We get that organic material down in there, and that's positive. That's a benefit to the grass. It'll help it out. As that continues to decay, that'll release some nutrients over time, so you gain some nutrition back out of that. We're recycling nutrients as opposed to having those leaves and removing them from everything. We don't gain any of the benefits that we can get from having that remaining there. The same thing in garden beds. Oftentimes we can take we can take the leaves and mulch those around plants, especially plants that you've planted within the last year or so. It's good to, you can put a little mulch layer, use those leaves as a mulch around the base of those plants. If you have a little bit more tender plants, then sometimes we'll make a fence around that plant and build that up. Oftentimes we'll do that with roses. But any of those marginally hardy plants that may benefit from that extra mulch layer, that mulch will not keep the ground from freezing. It could, if we never get temperatures low enough for long enough to freeze the ground. But what that mulch layer does, whether it's bark mulch or leaf mold or all those, it slows the process. So it's a more gradual change from warmer to cooler, or from unfrozen to frozen. And so that's almost always good for plants to slowly gain that. Same thing with fall temperatures, not having those major extremes. That mulch can help that. But just having really the conditions we've been having, we haven't been too warm and we haven't been too cold, but we've been cooler consistently. So that allows plants the opportunity and the time to prepare and get hardened off and be ready when the cold really does come.
I did a lot of mulching this week. I've got mulching blades on my big deck. And so I had a few hours out there doing that. And the next day, it was like I hadn't even been out there. So, because the leaves haven't all come down yet.
No,
and you're doing it, and it's like a blizzard of leaves falling on top of you as you're doing it. But you realize that if I don't chop them up now, that I'm going to have twice as much to chop up later, and they might not get as good a chop.
No.
So
And there might just be too large a volume to be able to get it to disappear.
yeah.
To be able to drop down into the turf and do what it needs to do.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to do for your lawn, is to get them mulched up and that way putting on.
And you may, we still have time to do a final fertilization if you haven't done that. We can still do that because the ground's not frozen. The grass is still, it's not growing as much, near as fast, but it's not done functioning. So we can still get uptake of those nutrients in the fall, rebuild the root system of that plant, which will make it more able to winter well and also be ready for spring.
I had another question that, it escapes me now, that somebody had asked me to ask, and it had to do with burning, because we know that
Yes.
we have spoken before that burning your leaves is not a good idea.
That'd be the least preference we'd have.
Yeah, because it's been so darn dry that it's still
Yes.
dry outside, and you
And the
can
wind.
cause a problem. The wind is another part of all of that. But you lose so much by burning the leaves, and there's no nutritional value from those leaves when you burn them up, right?
Yeah, there still can be some, but we can lose. We really lose the mulching characteristics and pluses when we do that because we turn it to ash. So there still might be, because you're not heating that up to a super high temperature. It's not like we're baking it. You are burning it. You're reducing it to ash. Some of those nutrients will still survive that. There's not a lot of nutrition in there. It takes a lot of leaves, to build up pounds of nutrients. Tons.
Yeah.
So, but still, the real benefit there is the organic matter. It's that decay, what's left in the decay process. And we kind of eliminate that when we turn it to ash.
Yeah. Okay. I had this question that came to me this week as well from somebody who wanted to know, with the drought and with, they have a well from which they draw their water, and they live in an agricultural community where there's farm fields all around them. And they were saying, is there a chance that my well water, as it gets lower and lower with the drought, could be affected by chemicals from farming, fertilizers and things like that, getting into the system? I don't see how that would happen.
So the source, is it a spring? If it's a drilled well.
It's a drilled well. It's
Okay.
deep underground.
All right. So that's a plus. Usually where we have a higher chance of contamination from a variety of sources, it's when we have a spring or a cistern, where we have that shallow surface water that's, might be in a gully between the hills and the valleys, and it comes out, and it's a shallow source of water. Those have a greater chance of becoming contaminated from numerous things. Even a dead animal that's in the woods,
Yeah.
That can percolate, just from rain or wash off, that can drain from that and gain access to that source. If we have a drilled well, then that decreases the risk because, that source of water is deeper in the ground. Of course, there might be other things that, with the geology of the soil and the makeup of everything, that we can run into there. And then is it capped? Does it have a casing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the other thing. You know, is it cased, and how deep is it cased?
Mm-hmm.
Because a casing is, you know, is pipe.
Yeah, plastic pipe.
Yeah, so it might be, you know, like Schedule 40 pipe. It could be metal too. Typically now, though, it's all plastic.
Yeah.
But having sections of that and how deep that goes, that will also help keep surface water from gaining access to that hole in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another piece of that. So that increases the safety again by having piping, and then if it's properly capped above the ground, that we can prevent any surface water from gaining access to that. You know, that's another plus and benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had another person from the next time you see Bob section. And the next time you see Bob, ask him, and this one had to do with noxious weeds in our area. I
Lots of those.
won't have the time for that
Yeah.
today. Maybe we can pick it up next week. They
Okay.
wanted to know, can noxious weeds cause skin irritations? And
Short
is
answer
this-
to that is yes.
Is this the time of the
Depends
year
on the
for
weed.
that?
Depends on the weed
Yeah. Okay. There's the short answer.
or the plant.
We'll get the longer answer next week.
All right.
At First Commonwealth Bank, we know that financial confidence begins with the right account for the way you manage your money. All of our checking accounts are packed with online tools, including Credit Score Manager with 24/7 access to your credit report. And our debit cards are eligible for MasterCard ID theft protection. Find the best checking account for you at fcbanking.com. First Commonwealth Bank. Time to be first. Member FDIC.
At Grand Beginnings Children's Center, their focus is on growing and teaching children to be the best they can be. They know children need education, inclusion, and safety. Grand Beginnings has a mission to provide a warm and nurturing environment in which each child can grow physically, emotionally, socially, intellectually, and spiritually. Grand Beginnings Children's Center with 2 locations in Indiana, teaching children to shine since 1991. Call 724-463-1819. Find